Yeah, well, it is the morning for me because I'm in Dallas.
Are you?
I'm not in the UK. Yeah, so usually it's about lunchtime-ish when we speak, but I'm in Dallas, so
Okay.
it's 8 in the morning now.
Oh, that's right. You've been on holiday. How was your vacation?
Oh, dude, it was amazing. Like, I don't normally take long vacations, and when I do, it's just me and the kids because they're kids and they need constant attention. We just go on kind of more like adventures. So we went to Cambodia and Vietnam once, and so then every day you're doing something because usually if you just sat around with kids, you don't get a chance to relax because they just need entertaining all day, which is fine. But because we were coming into the US, we had to go somewhere for 2 weeks. So I just said, fuck it, let's go somewhere. Let's go to the Caribbean. So we went to the Turks and Caicos Islands.
Oh, nice.
Man, honestly, it's like actual paradise. It's the actual photos you see in magazines where it's clear water and white sand beaches. It's had 2 weeks there. I've got a tan. I've got actual colour in my skin for once, which is nice.
That's awesome. I mean, I was meant to be there with my partner for 2 months, couldn't make it because of quarantine issues and baby. But yeah, my friend sent me all the photos.
You know what the funny thing was? We flew into Miami afterwards. It's like an hour and 20-minute flight. I was thinking, God, if I lived in Miami, I'd be going all the time.
Yeah, it's so close, right, along the East Coast. Yeah, it was brilliant.
Yeah.
All
so
right,
you saw well, we're recordings, so this is
okay.
this part of the show. So you saw that I declared I might dump the Willy Woo show.
Yeah, I was like, oh, don't do that. No, I understand you though. Like,
I'll tell you what it was. And I'll tell you the funny story. So it's more like me and my producer Danny. We speak every week, and we have hour to 2 hour conversations about where the show's going, what's happening with the show, what we're doing it, and we're always looking forward, like where can we take it next. And one of the things I've been saying to him is that sometimes I feel like if the mission is Bitcoin and the mission is like how Bitcoin can help people, I think sometimes focusing too much on price can be a bit of a distraction because one, I'm not a trader, and secondly, I'm thinking, well, look, I want this podcast to be something that pushes humanity forward. I know that sounds hyperbolic and stuff, but I was thinking, it's like those tweets. I don't know if you ever saw, like every time Bitcoin went up $1,000, I retweeted the new price, and we just went up and up and up. And then I was like, so I decided I'm not going to do that anymore. So one of the things we were talking about is that we've been considering making the show not just a Bitcoin show. In the future, would it be like a wider set of guests because you talk about the same stuff every week? So I was thinking if we do that, one of the shows that might have to go might be the Willy Woo show, and it's quite a sacrifice because it's my biggest show. Like I don't mind telling you this. Put out a Willy Woo show, you get over 100,000 downloads. I mean, 2 of my Willy Woo shows are in my top 5 of all time. And if you put the correct title, like if I title this Bitcoin 300K by end of year, it will do 150 to 200,000 downloads of the million I do every month. So we've discussed the ideas like if we do it, the only reason we're doing it is for the show. We're actually sacrificing downloads and revenue for it.
So, let me ask this question: is like going wider than Bitcoin? Like, what's the thought behind that? Like you talk. Like my following is that you wanted to get down to the roots of Bitcoin. Like the change it can make in the world, that kind of thing. Like, if you go wider than Bitcoin, what are you going? Like, you're going to talk about geopolitics, that type of thing, or?
Yeah, maybe. I think what it is, I've interviewed everyone in Bitcoin now. I've been really fortunate. I think there's like a couple of people left. Liz Starks, I haven't, but we've got that planned. That's going to happen hopefully at some point. Jack Dorsey, I asked him if I can interview him in Miami. He said yes. So there's a kind of like, if you do the tick list of everyone, I've kind of done everyone. I've interviewed Szabo.
You want to move? Yeah, I got you now.
Yeah, I interviewed BK Lee.
That's quite different.
Yeah. So when I say go wider, it's like I've spoken to everyone, I've had every conversation, and like, I mean, unless you hate me, which there are a few people obviously that fucking hate me and want me to die, but like if you don't hate me, then you've probably you listen to my show, and if I get a big guest, you listen to it. And we've got loads of good podcasters, Willie, out there doing great stuff for Bitcoin. So I was like, all right, if I want to level up, I've got 1 million downloads a month. If I want to get to 10 million, how do you get there? And I think one of the things you can do is say, okay, it's no longer just a Bitcoin show. It is a Pete McCormack show, and a bit like how Rogan does like comedians, MMA, and weirdos. I could be like Bitcoin, macro, and weirdos.
I've been thinking about this, right? Because like I'm a numbers guy, and it's like I think it's a mistake. No, myself excluded from this picture.
I know it's a mistake.
It's a mistake, right? It's a mistake in that you're basically underestimating Bitcoin's growth, right? Because I just put out a tweet. It's like in 2028, we're going to have like 2 billion people on this network. So Bitcoin becomes part of the fabric of everybody's lives. And you're deciding here to like, I want to branch out bigger than this small pond called Bitcoin because it's so early, and you'll branch us elsewhere. And you're not going to, the show grows. The show grows with Bitcoin, and the topic of Bitcoin grows and encompasses the entire world, right? Like geopolitics, governance, how nation states are run, how economies are run, how the poor in developing countries can get access. So this is like the topic of Bitcoin is huge. It's not like this little pond and then I have to go bigger because this pond's not growing. This pond is growing like a big freaking black hole sucking in the whole universe. And you're going, oh, I'm thinking I want to jump ship in a way or go bigger and capture from this space, capture the world, when the thing you're covering is capturing the world.
I know.
And you've got the number one podcast, and the number two podcast is Pomp. And that's exactly what he's doing. He's gone beyond Bitcoin to capture all interesting topics, yet you're still number one. And why is that? This thing is growing and you're capturing it. All you have to do is fill the facets of Bitcoin as it grows.
It feels like a bit of a telling off, Willy.
No, it's just like my very opinionated opinion. I actually thought you were like, because I was watching the interview with Parabolic guy, right? Jason A. Williams, and he's, you guys are talking about like how the community's just like it's just trolling, and it's a cancel culture, and it's just turned into some sort of train wreck. And I thought you actually meant like, well, we just don't want to cover price because that's just like everyone's just looking at price and we're not looking at the important topics. And if it was that, I would understand it and I would counter argue because I don't do what I do because of price. I do it because like if Bitcoin's going to make impact, it needs to grow in its market cap so it's large enough to swallow the world's economy. And the best thing I do, because the best thing I can do in the skills I have and the reach I have so far is really just get that out to investors. So when they look at it, this is like, oh, that's a legitimate investor. That's an legitimate investment. There's fundamentals behind it. It's not all like Dogecoin memes, and there's some data behind it. And that, no, I'm not going to sell because, the latest FUD round from whatever Bloomberg article comes around. And so that's what I think my role is to provide retail, not institutional, but retail access to high quality analysis that can understand the investment they're in, and then it can help that market cap grow and more people would come in with confidence so that it's big enough to make some meaningful impact on the world economy.
Yeah, look, I know you're right. I mean, I know it's a mistake, and I'm not saying I'm definitely going to do it. It's just
it's just going to do this mistake.
No, it's just one of those things I keep thinking about. It's like sometimes there's people I want to interview and I don't get it because they're like, "Oh, it's a Bitcoin show. I don't want to talk about Bitcoin." Like I missed out on somebody recently that like I really wanted to interview. So there's that as well. But no, I know it's like mathematically it's a mistake. But then there's the flip side where it's like, well, if Bitcoin can have this impact on the world, I know the small part I can play is onboarding people and be willing to deflect all the complications around it and just be the idiot and says like, explain that to me again, I don't understand it. Like, and if you're right, we go to 2 billion users, then perhaps, I serve my small part in that is helping on board some of those. So I know that as well. I was with Parker Lewis yesterday, actually, in this hotel room. We recorded an interview because I even said to him, I said, I was even thinking of selling all my Bitcoin. He was like, what? I was like, because I was thinking if I didn't own Bitcoin, would I be more objective or not? Like, I was questioning that, and he gave me a very good defense of that, and so I'm not selling my Bitcoin, but it is something on my mind. But the funny thing I wanted to tell you is the amount of emails I had come in saying, "No, don't get rid of the Willy show. No, don't. I need that show." And I was like, "Shit!" So basically, I'm going to lose half my listeners now if I do.
Yeah, it's whatever.
We'll be here if you're still doing it. We'll be probably still here in a year or something.
Yeah, I don't know. It's your call. I do think that this thing's going to grow, and I don't know why. Like, you can't just do that anyway. Like, yes, and unless it's just a bandwidth.
I think the other way to do it, well, you can't have two shows. I tried having two shows, and it just doesn't work. You've got to focus on one. The other thing is just to change the show name. Just take Bitcoin out of the title, which means you like lose some SEO benefits. But when you reach out to someone to interview them, it's a bit like Lex Friedman. He's the AI guy, but he talks to anyone he wants to talk to. You could be the Bitcoin guy, but you can
do the Peter McCormack show. Something like that.
Well, I tell you what, there's this guy who put out this tweet thread about what happened in Afghanistan and the economics of it. And I really wanted to talk to him, and I'm still going to try and get him on, but I don't want to turn it into a Bitcoin conversation. I don't want to go, well, Bitcoin can fix Afghanistan. I just don't want to get into that conversation, but I do want to understand what happened with the central bank in Afghanistan. I want to understand what happened with the asset freezes because the Taliban is sanctioned. So I do want to have those conversations. And it's just like, does the Bitcoin name put people off? Because they'll go, oh, great. So basically, this is going to be a show about Bitcoin fixing Afghanistan. So do you see what I mean? It's like it becomes a bit of a complicating factor.
It's just a branding issue, isn't it? It's just whatever gets them on board.
I do want
a problem to solve.
I do want to tickle a little rant out of you because I saw one of your tweets. I want to talk to you about what happened with Substack and, you've moved over to Bitcoin, which is, accepting Bitcoin, which is awesome. Is that, by the way, is that Substack have allowed it for everyone or just for you?
Currently for me, rolling out to others. I think, I imagine Dan Howard will be next. So, I mean, I contacted them really early and talked to their staff, and they're like, yeah, it's on the roadmap sometime, wishy-washy, hand-wavy, and then the relationship developed as the letter started to rise on their rankings, and then actually the letter blew them away because it was not the profile of any of their Substack stuff, right? Which was like, do all this free content, and there's this standard content creation thing you do, and mine was like completely different because I was leveraging my Twitter following, and of course what I write is not really like what they do, and so it was really interesting to them, and eventually that culminated into talking with the founders, and eventually deep into early into this year, they agreed to do Bitcoin for me, and they just didn't have the resources at that point, and they resourced it it was only maybe a month ago they resourced it, and they had already selected OpenNode as the partner to do that, and they nailed it. They nailed it within exactly the rollout plan and time. So within schedule. Honestly, I was ready to move to Ghost and build it myself. And because right from the get go, I was ready to launch with Bitcoin, but I just didn't have the bandwidth to go into managing the development around it to build that. And so actually, it came in the nick of time because I was in motions to migrate, and And yeah, so it's live now, and it's awesome. And I'm really hoping that there'll be a big response with that, because they're going to use it as a test case. They're really looking at how much reception there is, and I'm just really keen to see like Bitcoin become super popular amongst at least the crypto publications, for them to go, wow, okay, this is something. This is like mostly the story of accepting Bitcoin is like, yeah, it just doesn't work. Then we'll cancel it. Like Stripe offered Bitcoin way back in, what was it, 2015, 2016, and then they canceled it because no one was using it. And for me, I'm like, I basically doubled the price if you're using fiat, because I don't want to deal with banks. There's just been months, like you've had issues with your business with banks. I've had no end of issues, like
Well, this is the
literally
rant I want to
weeks
tease out of you.
It's literally weeks lost. It's um, like, I mean, for example, here's an example, because most people think banking works fine if you're a normie, but if once you're on international rails and money is coming in from one jurisdiction to the other, and it's in a foreign currency, and there's significant fund movements between the two, it starts to become problematic. And so, first off, from going through Stripe and the credit cards, and before that, and then that comes, it gets accepted. This is what actually happens. It gets accepted by Stripe. Stripe then converts the US dollar into Hong Kong dollars, because my bank is in Hong Kong. And then they then wire the money across to me in Hong Kong. So that process costs me, was it like 4% plus another 1%, because the Forex. By the time it gets to me, it's 5% taken and clipped off the ticket. And then I have to convert it back into US dollars. The bank then clips it again. And if I ever want to stack sats with that, then I've got to, I've gone to US dollars again, and then I'm moving it into an exchange, and then it's another wire transfer. It's just so it's very slow. But then on top of that, we just had no end of issues with the bank. Like it took us, this is with DBS Bank in Hong Kong. They had a 2-day, you can start a business and we'll open up your business account in 2 days, and it's online expedited sort of process. So we did that. We filled in the forms, and then nothing came back. And then like maybe 3 weeks into it, we got to talk to somebody, and they just said, what is your business? This is this and that and that and that and that and that and that. And it took 2.5 months before they enabled the account. So I was using my personal account up to then. 2.5 months into it, they enabled it. Then we had issues with Stripe sending the money into that bank account, because there was issues with the name, because like initially the name was under the name was under my name, and then they wired into the company name, and all the documents said that if I am the shareholder of this and I'm the director and the only owner of it, then there's no problems. There are problems. So you got all this paperwork to work through. Took my operations guy, like I think about 3 weeks of calls with Stripe and the banks to figure out how to get this all done. So now we're like, 3.5 months into it. And then like the wired money is no longer being rejected and being bounced back, and it's being deposited. But the US dollar account's not showing up online banking. So now I'm going to like, can you load up click and point, right? No, it's not. I've got to go back into the city. It takes an hour's drive, whole day spent filling in forms, wait another few weeks, and like, it's still not working. I call them, and they say, yeah, there was issues with the form. You didn't fill it in right. And I said, what do you mean? I just went to the teller and I signed everything that they filled in. So your bank filled in the forms for yourself, and I just signed it, and it failed. then it's like another 3 weeks. Now we're into like 4.5 months before this whole system's up and running. And it's just been ongoing since the whole, that's one case with it. And this is the better bank than the bank I was working with before. So, when the crypto rails went online, Bitcoin went online, I was like, one less thing. So I just don't think people realize how painful banking rails is, and I'm not even talking about the delays and wiring and all that sort of stuff that most people talk about. It's just
it's
working with
bullshit.
banks. You know?
I mean, I had it with. I used to have a business account with. Oh, who was it? One of the neobanks, and they closed my account. We changed the structure of the company. Just my accountant, the amazing Laura, she wanted to change the structure of the company to have a holding company, a subsidiary, just for certain tax purposes. And so they ended up closing my account because they don't allow subsidiaries to hold accounts. I was like, oh. So I was like, is there any way of having an account with you? She said, and they said no. So we were done with them. Every neobank I applied had the same rule. So I went to the traditional banks like NatWest and et cetera, and I applied, and NatWest and Barclays both rejected me, and they didn't give me any reason. They just said, we're not willing to give you a business account. And even though I was like, this is an operational business, it's been operational for 3 years. I've got 6 figures in the account. I just want to transfer over. Nope, they both rejected me. So I ended up using my personal account like you did to run it, my Lloyd's personal account. And then I had that review, that call where they phoned me up and said, look, we want to do an account review. We want to know what this money going from here to here is. And I said, look, it's none of your business. And I'm a grown adult with 2 children. I don't need to tell. I don't need a parent. So then they just wrote to me and closed my accounts down. So I had 6 weeks to get an account. I ended up with Revolut, who came on as a sponsor in the end. But I ended up with Revolut Personal, and I went with TransferWise as my business bank. But I mean, TransferWise is great, but I worry about holding too much money in a TransferWise account. I would worry about saying $500,000 in it, because if anything happened to them, I don't know where to go to get that resolved, and I don't trust them anyway. I just don't, because it's not that I don't trust them. I don't trust any banks. So. And I also know that they're not particular fans of crypto. So, like, if I want to buy Bitcoin, I have to transfer from them to Revolut, and then so I have to go through all these complicated factors. And
you got to really tiptoe, and I mean, I don't like TransferWise. I loved it until I didn't love it, and like my my little cousin, like 19 years of age, sends me $600. I didn't know about it until I said, "Where's that money that you were sending?" Because so I could secretly to buy Bitcoin for him. He said I sent it, and I was like, as it turned out that TransferWise had blocked it because his name resembled a very common name, and any common name is usually red flagged because someone's money laundered under that name. And so, like, for a $600 New Zealand dollar transaction, so whatever, $400, my whole TransferWise account got locked up and frozen. And then later on, some other thing happened and the whole account froze up. I didn't even know about it because I wasn't using it at the time. And I said, it's just not working. A month later, I thought, we've reactivated it. So there's no way I'd ever run anything mission critical on it. Like, I had an old business, a venture that used TransferWise for billing, and that did get shut down because some glitch, and that had nothing to do with crypto, but it got shut down, and all the systems failed, the APIs failed, our billing system failed. And like, the thing is that we can't blame these operators because they're just doing their best to comply and not be shut down, right?
Well, they're operating surveillance on behalf of the government. They're an extension of law enforcement.
And so this is the thing, is that the transmission of money has now become weaponized, and it's this kind of thing that it's like, if you think about money, the properties of money, which let's face it, very little of the volume is me moving paper notes around. It is really just electronic transfer between banks. And if you call this a medium of exchange, it's no longer a very good medium of exchange as a definition of money, because it's so hard to move money without it being stopped, locked, and so it's not a medium anymore. It's being blocked, and people don't understand that it's being blocked until they see these issues. And I'm seeing businesses that have had to draw on like $250,000 of line of credit from the bank because the bank blocked an incoming payment for whatever reason. It's held for weeks. And like, so the friction is, it's impacting the economy. And I'm thinking of Jack Dorsey when he founded Square. He's talking about, now he was saying in his research that they found that as humans, we traded with each other before we actually talked to each other. And so he then looked at the internet and how the internet had really made talking to each other efficient, messaging across social media networks. He obviously had Twitter at that point. And he said, like, wow, we have really made that free and open and decentralized, and it's really impacted the world, really radically changed the world. Yet this intrinsic human behavior to trade is the worst. It's the pits. It's like, if I want to accept money, it's like ridiculous weeks. Like, look at what I did. It was like 4.5 months before I could accept money as a business properly,
It's fucking ridiculous.
That's what his mission at Stripe is, I'm not Stripe, sorry, Square. And this is exactly what was like our medium of exchange as money, which is one of the core intrinsic behaviors of our society, is being, like impeded, untold friction. And like, I mean, that is like, in a nutshell, I think why Dorsey is headlong into Bitcoin, because it's an opportunity to restore that normality to our species. And if you see what the internet did to the world, imagine what free flows of money. So like entrepreneurs can interact with each other instantly. So, and we're getting a bit of that in crypto. And I think, yeah, it's a big topic. Anyway, it's a big topic.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think money works for you. It can work for most people in very simple scenarios, especially if you go back. Let's go back like a decade, 2 decades. A lot of money is in cash and checks and basic card swipes. And if you live in one country and perhaps you're a service provider to people in your community, they pay you in cash or they do a bank transfer. Like it kind of works on a domestic level, okay. As soon as you start adding an international component, it is completely fucked. I've seen it everywhere I travel, everywhere. I've seen it when I always talk about El Salvador, of course I do, because it's our big project.
Yeah,
at
the
the
remittances, the whole.
But when I was there with Mallers, we were there making, recording the film about what's happening down there, and they're providing a service for people to a remittance service, but they have to also provide the ability to offboard when you're out there. And he was trying to just do simple transfers of dollars from the US into El Salvador, and it was an absolute nightmare. I was with people, these guys in Guatemala, and they're saying if you ever want, you basically can't withdraw thousands of dollars from a bank account. It's like, it's impossible. You just can't do it. So we're talking about our banks being screwed, but even in these smaller countries, it's a lot worse. And if we didn't have Bitcoin, I wonder if we would just be like, oh, this is how it is. I wonder if, because we have Bitcoin, we realize how easy Bitcoin is, that we're like, well, none of this makes sense. And Mallers always talks about instant and final settlement with Bitcoin, pretty much. And I always think of that. It's like if I want to do business with you, Willy, and you want to pay me, or I want to pay you, we send each other a Bitcoin address, and within an hour, the money's going to be with us, and we're holding it. We physically have it. And if it's Lightning, it's instant. And we've realized that's possible. It's possible to build a system that allows for instant and final settlement. I think one of the reasons is that it's because it's also an international currency. The currency conversions are pain, surveillance is a pain, banking infrastructure's a pain. One open, free, permissionless network clearly works so much better.
It's existing everywhere, right?
Yeah.
It's everywhere. It's metaverse money.
Well, one of the things that Parker brought up to me yesterday, he said, rather than sell your Bitcoin, what you should do is go Bitcoin only. And I did think about, I'm genuinely thinking about that it's not that difficult to do. I think I would still need to hold probably something like a TransferWise account, which allows for dollars and pounds, just for things I have to pay for, like my mortgage or whatever. I can get a credit card now, which converts Bitcoin to cash.
Yeah, credit card does most.
But there's certain things I think I might need an account for. But the only thing that ever stops me doing it, Willie, is that idea that maybe over the space of a year I get a 50, 60, 70% haircut of my net wealth. That does worry me.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it depends if you want to be Bitcoin only or whether or not, shock horror, be crypto only, because if you're going to like do this right, in my opinion, you have Bitcoin. You may not need to dabble in any of the altcoin, all that sort of stuff, but you can use stablecoins. And then, I've been thinking about that.
Well, I want $1. If there's $1, I mean, this is one of the things where I've been defending Ethereum recently, and I've got a little bit, not too much shit for it, but I've just been saying I find it very hard to binary dismiss Ethereum when there's clearly a use case for digital dollars that exists on that network. And I know they exist on Tron and other things, but I'm just saying
it's more than that though. I'm going to cut you off.
Sorry, well, yeah, it's fine. You go. Well, the only thing I was going to add to that is that I was chatting to somebody last night, and they were saying that there's a dollar stable coin coming to Liquid, which I feel a little bit more reassured about. But I don't want to get into that, or because it's on Bitcoin, it's better.
It's just a matter of where, like, stable coins are stable coins. They can run on any network, and they will, right? So, like, the network's like, do you want to build this in Python, JavaScript, or whatever the hell the platform is? That's all these platforms are. And it's the app that runs on it. And stablecoin is one of the apps, like USDC runs on Solana, Tron, whatever, Ethereum, all sorts. It can run on, the Lightning Network if you want. And so the thing is, now I lost the original interrupting thought is...
I was saying I struggle to, like, binary dismiss Ethereum. I don't like Ethereum. I would never hold ETH. I don't really want it, but I do at the same time want to have stablecoins.
No, it's been a great experimentation platform, and some really cool apps being built. And I was going to get back to this thing is like volatility of Bitcoin. You can be Bitcoin only, but you can have a portfolio here of Bitcoin and stablecoin, and then secondly, you can generate yield. Right, your stable coin can generate 10% or more yield from it, and you can actually put that into a DeFi network and get that kind of yield. And so you're now deeply inside the digital finance world, decentralized digital finance world, natively. And like, Maximus might call DeFi networks as like a Ponzi scheme. Well, there's lots of Ponzi being built on it, but there's some really cool shit you can do. You can put stable coins into these networks and generate yield because people do want to borrow those coins so they can go long or short the market on margin. So, we're seeing the, essentially traditional finance slowly being built out on DeFi networks. I can trade on Uniswap. I can trade on all manner of dexes that are coming. Now, the next thing is margin, which is happening. And then they need to borrow so we can lend and we get yield. And then you can do derivatives. You can create insurance products. So there's a whole thing being built here. And it's already ready to be used. And you don't really need to be Bitcoin only and be exposed to that volatility.
Well, there's just risk. There's risk everywhere. That's the thing. And I think it's risk planning. I hold the majority of my wealth in Bitcoin, but I want to hold some pounds in cash. I still hold some pounds in cash in a secret hidden place. I probably will hold some stable coins. I am still thinking about just getting a small amount of gold as well. Just when you're thinking about every single scenario, like say £100,000 of gold, which isn't like a huge part of my net wealth, but it's enough to say, well, if there's a scenario where for whatever reason, I need gold. At least I've got it. I keep thinking, in a bit in property. I know some Bitcoiners are like, don't hold property, it's a scam. But I actually think it's wise to hold a bit of property. Just a range of things that you can sell if you need to in certain scenarios that protect yourself. I mean, I've just got back into mining with Compass.
I see that.
Yeah, I'll tell you why I did it. Well, firstly, I did it because they're coming on as a sponsor, and I always want to try the services as sponsors. But I've had excess cash in the bank, and I don't want to put all of my excess cash in Bitcoin mid bull market, right? But I also don't want to hold all that cash in a bank account. So in my head, I was like, well, I can buy the ASICs, which is essentially I'm buying an asset, a capital asset, and I can sell those at any point. And at the moment, they're worth more than what I bought them for.
Right.
But the prices of ASICs are a lot less volatile than Bitcoin, but they're earning me a yield. So I think I'm parking cash in mining equipment, which is earning yield by mining Bitcoin. So in 7 days, I mined like $1,100. So over the space of a month, it's going to be like $4,000 or $5,000 that I've mined, and I could sell those ASICs at the end of the month, probably for more than I bought them for, and I've generated $5,000 of Bitcoin. Now, that's something I can monitor slowly. My worry about putting it all in Bitcoin, say Bitcoin did another 50% haircut, in the short term, I don't think the ASICs take a 50% haircut. I think the ASICs take their haircut at the end of a bull market.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Yeah, you're probably right because, well, with that last pullback, they'd be in demand, right? Because everyone wants to plug them in. Yeah. This is all about diversifying risk. And I thought about it because I really just want to get off banking. It's been such, like when you plan your life, you really want to plan it around what gives you energy and joy because that gives you oomph to do the stuff in the world that you want to do. And if you've got this thing that's constantly, like I live quite an international life and it's constantly this thorn in my side, I was like, how can I debank as much as I can so everything is easy and engaging? And so the thought is that actually crypto is actually at that point where I can use it. I can have my Bitcoin stash. I can put my cash, like I have a lot of cash, and the cash is that, if everything crashes, there's runway for years for the family. And I was like, okay, but I don't want it to be diluted. And then I was like, okay. And I sold just my main house in New Zealand. And, mainly because it was a pain, the thorn in my side. Admin houses are a pain in the butt. Constant maintenance, constant issues, tenants, property management, tax compliance, all this sort of stuff. So it was taking too much of my time. So I sold the house. And I was like, well, there goes my safe haven thing that if all shit happens, shit hits the fan, like, where do I put it? And I thought, well, it'll be cash. But in crypto, we have this cash and carry trade. And it's a very newly developing capital market. It's very inefficient. So you can actually put money into funds that run, basically miniature versions of Alameda. And they will generate for you, 30 to 60% per annum.
Wow.
Like that is how inefficient the Bitcoin market is and how much long demand there is for the volatility of this asset. You can sell the future, hedge yourself by holding the Bitcoin, and you can get an easy 20% over the course of a bull market per annum. But if you add to that all sorts of, smart models, and you can arbitrage funding, you can market make, you do all this sort of stuff, and it's these funds don't lose money on, like, they might go zero, but they hardly ever deliver a negative week. And it's like, oh, 1% this week, 1% the next week. And so that's where I've started to look into and started deploying capital into. It's like, that's the rainy day money. I can pull it out, within a month's notice. I'm generating 40 to, it's market dependent, 40% plus yields. And that's better than the capital gains I get from the house. It's just beating the monetary inflation, the money printing of the US dollar, which is around 30%. So I'm still winning against that. The house is not winning against that unless I've got a mortgage and leveraging it. The house might be going up 20% per year. Unless I've got borrowing half the value of the house, I'm losing ground on that. So, that's what I did. And that's a crypto world. That is all fluid and no need to deal with banks.
Let me ask you another couple of questions about Substack. I'm sure people are listening like, when are you going to talk about the market? But hold on a second. I think this sounds quite interesting. Do you know, you might not know this and might not be able to say, but do you know if Substack are taking their cut in Bitcoin and holding in Bitcoin?
I know well, I don't think they'll mind if I say that. At the moment, it's like there's no cut, right? They're just giving it out, being very kind, giving it out for free, and they're just figuring out how they're going to monetize it. And they're going to see it. It's an experiment for them right now, and they'll figure it out.
Because if they took what is it? Are they generally 10%?
Generally, yeah, it's 10% is their margin. Is that still current? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, 10%.
Because it'd be interesting if they took that 10% of Bitcoin and held Bitcoin themselves.
Yeah, no, that would be really interesting if they had a Bitcoin treasury like that. I should talk to them. They're so busy building out their, that immense growth in that startup, and that'd be really cool if they did. I think they'd get a lot of good, interesting exposure from being one of those companies. They'd get, the Bitcoin publicity. I think they were really wrapped. They were really wrapped with just the reception they got from the Bitcoin community and the media. People saying this is big. Writers anywhere can now write and be debanked and yet get paid and stuff like that. So I'm not sure if that's true.
It'd be great for dissident writers and people who are writing.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's quite true yet. Because OpenNode does have KYC AML compliance. So I'm not completely sure about that. You'd have to talk to OpenNode.
I'm sure someone could build it though, like a Silk Road version of Substack where anyone could write, get paid in Bitcoin, and
BTC Pay Server, right? But that's not what's integrated into Substack. So
the other thing is, how do recurring revenues work? If I do, I have to pay for the year, and then you send out an email.
Yeah, it's because Bitcoin's not pull, it's push, and the user has to push it in. We just switched the billing cycle to quarterly, and so it's that like every quarter you have to pay or you lose the newsletter. So to some people that might not work very well as a writer because you might lose a lot of subscribers.
Yeah, well, that's the downside that I estimate. It's like subscription businesses are great because people just it's like the gyms. People join a gym in January. In February they stop going, but their membership lasts all year. You're going to lose people just because they don't get round to it, or they're like, oh, this isn't. You always feel a little bit bad unsubscribing to like a newsletter or getting around to it. But I expect you'll have a higher drop off rate because of this.
Yeah, I think so. I think I don't mind too much. It's like I think that's just a really good signal that like. The letter's not the right content. There's this other side, which is you're getting very high signal that you are not producing content. People aren't reading it and they're not renewing it. So you can adapt the product, and it's kind of like short-term loss to long-term gain because you're learning about what you really need to do. I kind of think I poo-poo this idea of they're paying you. They don't even know you're paying because you're writing crap and no one gives a shit. But you're just siphoning money. I think that's stupid and short-sighted. You want to be producing value. And I like it when I lose subscribers because I'm not providing the value they want, because then I know, that's good. And then the people who are staying with me are like the ones that are, your diehard fans that love what you do. And that just adds joy to my life that, you don't want this whole cruft of people paying you money and it's not a reciprocal agreement.
You're totally right, man. Listen, I've been having some people think a minor meltdown recently where I've just been ranting about various things and having a bit of disillusionment with things. And I have my quite open views on COVID vaccinations. And I have so many people messaging me going, you should stop talking about this. You're losing listeners and losing followers. I was like, well, I don't really care. If I lose somebody for saying something I believe in, then fine. Yeah, that's fine. And if I gain people, fine. But I don't want to have this fake audience because I'm pretending I think something that isn't true. It's I'm not an anarcho-capitalist. I'm not really a libertarian. I am a reluctant statist, and I'm willing to have the debates and the arguments. And if I lose listeners, fine, so be it. But at least I've got the listeners who are listening to me because they think I'm authentic. I'm totally with you on that, Willy.
It's total key, right? It's that contact of trust. No, like, yeah, and that's how it's built. And I think that's why this is the top podcast, because, even right down to the finances of this podcast, it's public and people trust you.
Yeah, some. That does flip the other way though. In that public, I have considered stop doing the public finances just because you get shit for it, and there's like that envy thing that comes with it, and also the I think being completely transparent fucks with some people's heads. They're like, they don't understand it. They're like, well, he must be lying. He must be a spook. Or the latest round of accusations is that I'm a paid shill by like the UK government or the pharma companies, because they can't handle the fact that someone has a different opinion. Like, if you believe something, they're like, well, there's got to be something behind this. It's like, and I've always tried to be transparent. It's like, no, of course I'm not working for MI6, you fucking moron.
Yeah, it's a great defense, because it's like, yeah, it's public.
Well, I'm like, find the hole. One of the other things is, I always thought, somebody said to me early on, is like, you have to be very careful with being a public face because people will try and counsel you. I was like, well, I'm just going to put everything out there, right? Okay, 1, I was a drug addict. 2, my marriage failed. 3, I'm like completely, so I can never have like this gotcha. It's like, here's all my shit.
Yeah,
Counsel me. I actually kind of, like, some guy tweeted out the other day about me being like terrible for the Bitcoin community, and we should end him and get rid of him, blah, blah, blah. I was like, fucking bring it on, cancel me. Like, if anyone, I've had 5 attempts of people trying to cancel me in the last 2 years, like 5 actual attempts, 2 completely coordinated. And I'm like, bring it on. Like, if I deserve to be cancelled, cancel me. Like, let's go for it. Let's fucking have it. Bring it on. And if you can't, then let's get on and produce content. But that's my head in Willy sometimes, man. Anyway, listen, we're 45 minutes in. We haven't even talked about the market. We should talk about it because people are going to be like, well, this is what we're here for.
Yeah, was like, this is the worst show ever. I was like,
shut the fuck up.
You should cancel the show.
Yeah, cancel Pete, cancel Willy. Probably won't get the downloads now. I'll just get rid of you for the downloads. It's like, Willy, we only did 30,000 this month.
Undermining the show right now by getting 45 minutes and not talking about the markets.
We should just, should we not talk about it at all? Just really piss people off. No, but we should. Look, listen, the way okay, firstly, also, tell me if this is new or not. There was a important note within your forecast this month that all forecasts are probabilistic, blah, blah, blah. Has that note always been there?
It's been going on for a few months now.
I didn't know if that was new.
I put in a disclaimer, but no one reads disclaimers. And then I was like, no, I've got it. And actually, one of the things was when I did the forecast, I think I was on a 10 in a row. It was a decent number of rows of forecasts. It was correct. And I think I made a mistake of not saying, this is probabilistic. I am going to be wrong. And eventually it's going to sting you. And because a lot of people are just like, they just thought it's just like clockwork,
Crystal ball.
It's nothing's like clockwork. It's not a crystal ball, right? So, the first wrong one, I got massive backlash, the first wrong one was not too bad because it was a sideways band, and I went sideways one way and it went sideways the other, not too bad. But there was another I called bullish on an absolute top, and people were like very scathing. And then I was like, and so eventually I was like, no, I've got to get this across, and I think I have to reword it in a way that's more catchy. Like, you're gonna get wrecked, and then put in like why this is probabilistic. And the thing is, the accuracy of this stuff, I believe, is going to get worse over time.
Because, it should do.
Yeah, it should do. It's just, on-chain is a known thing now. This is data symmetry is like what we were really working with is data asymmetry. We had information, you can analyze it, and the market wasn't digesting that into their pricing of the asset. Now that they are, it's closed the gap, and so you can be wrong more often because the market already knows that information. It's whether or not they can dissect it to the same degree of accuracy or reliability. So it's going to get worse, and so that needs to be clear.
Well, listen, I'm quite bullish at the moment, Ollie. I think this move up from like 29 to 45-ish, it felt quite steady. It didn't feel as aggressive as the move up at the start of the bull market. and I'm feeling quite bullish about it. There's a lot of signals pointing in good directions for Bitcoin right now. I saw a thing about potential futures ETF coming maybe in October. There's so much weird stuff going on in the world. There's a lot of people asking about Bitcoin. I'm feeling quite bullish right now. I know you see there's a bearish divergence at the moment, but I feel like we might stabilize above 50K pretty soon.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like it was locally bearish, and the last leader, I don't know. I thought I worded it correctly. People just thought it was hugely bearish. I see it as medium-sized bearish in the short term, but I didn't talk about the outer bullish environment that it's in because I just see it's unchanged from the last letter. So that kind of maybe people don't see the bullish note on it because that was a very fast to put out letter because it was very timely data. It only happened within 24 hours, and we've since seen it pull back. But I wanted to get it out there because the data was there, and I didn't have time to cover the normal macro and all that stuff. This is like a fast alert, and if you want the bigger macro, then go to the last letter. And it is bullish. It's obscenely bullish. So this was just to document what's already somewhat played out. So it's no secret. This pullback. It's yet to see how deep it pulls back, but I don't think it's going to be that major. It's kind of medium. But the greater environment's amazing. Like we've never seen this structure before.
What are you seeing?
Like, gosh, every bottom of a bear market, there's an accumulation band. The latest research that I've been doing is riffing off some of the stuff that Will Clemente created, which is a ratio, of a bunch of coins that people the Rick Astley is the ratio of Rick Astley, who doesn't ever sell
Never gonna keep
to Degen Trader, right? Degen Trader and Rick Astley, who's got more coins. You run the ratio and you get this, what I call a supply shock. It's ratio of like the coins that you're not going to get, bro, versus the coins that you might be able to get, right? So the more coins you cannot get versus, as that grows, the price usually goes up. So you run that ratio and it tracks price very closely. And this is where you can go, wow, it's going down. The price is going up. Then price has got to come back down because the demand and supply between Rick Astley and Degen Trader is moved the other way to Degen, who are going to buy and sell and short the market, So
so the entire market is like dictated by Rick Astley versus the Degen.
Yeah, exactly. So it's interesting. Like one of Rick Astley's cousins wrote in onto the newsletter. It was so funny. Anyway,
no way.
Yeah,
he's a national treasure.
He said something like I don't think he'd mind at all. I think he'd love that. So I was like, oh, good, he's not going to sue me using his brand.
He is a national treasure. I think his song is like one of the ones that's done over 1 billion views on YouTube or something.
Oh, there wasn't there someone did a long piece on this meme, this whole Rick rolling, and now it's done X billion views on YouTube, which that's significant revenue, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, so anyway, so you can run that ratio and it's actually just a method of demand and supply, because you have to figure out what are the coins you cannot buy versus the coins you can buy. And you can do different things like what's in cold storage that's not on exchanges versus on exchange, because you probably can buy the coins that are sitting on exchanges. You're not going to be able to buy the coins sitting in cold storage, right? So that could be another view. But there's an interesting view that the Glassnode guys do, which is they look at the coins that date beyond 155 days, 5 months. If they've been sitting in wallets 5 months, we call that long-term holders, because they haven't moved those coins in 5 months. The short-term holders, they're moving back and forth, but once they graduate into 5 months, we consider them long-term. So you can do that ratio of long-term holders, you can't buy their coins, versus short-term, which is below that threshold. And that's a really slow-moving graph, because The other stuff is reactive. You can trade over the weekly cycle, but this stuff is macro. It takes 5 months for a long-term holder to for us to figure out that's long-term. So it's very smooth charts, and every single bottom of the bear market, you see that peak. The long-term holders are at maximum accumulation. They've got the most of the coins. And then as the market runs up, they start to divest and they take the profits. And the short-term guys start to buy in because they're the new guys in there. And so when the long-term holders start to lose their supply of the coins, that starts to approach a top, right? But this is a macro cycle thing. So you see it, you would have saw it at the 2015, 2014 bottom. You saw it at the 2019 bottom. And actually you saw it over the 2020 where we came back down. There was COVID crisis. There was Michael Saylor scooping up all the coins. And that was another peak of long-term holders accumulating. And we're moving into a peak, and we will be at a peak at current rates by next month. And that means peak accumulation, right? Peak accumulation means that's defining this kind of sideways band. And then after that, we do a run-up. Like the last run-up was 10,000 to 60,000, starting from October last year. The run-up before that was from 4,000 to 14,000 over a matter of months. So if October we start to peak and we don't know how long that accumulation band is, we're starting to look into November onwards to go, that's when the run-up happens. That's like all the coins are being scooped up by these long-term guys, and November's when the ETF launches, is like what the SEC is making comments about. We'll probably release or allow an ETF around November timeframe.
That will be bullish as fuck.
Right. And then you take a look at that and you go, whoa, well, even if that doesn't happen, whatever the policy is, but just the structure of the market is like, this thing is going to go nuts. We're now going to approach into November, December with all these coins locked up by the long-term guys. And we know that when that happens, price is going to do a run-up, like the 2017 run-up, the first part of this year run-up. And I'm like going, whoa, we're underpricing this bull market into 2022 because everyone is thinking 4-year cycles. And it's like, we're breaking the 4-year cycle.
I feel like that's I want us to break the 4-year cycle. Well, really, I really want us to break the 4-year cycle because a predictable 4-year cycle is really good for an individual who understands how to play it and plays it. Right, it is, but I want it over with.
Yeah,
because I want to take that volatility out. I just selfishly, I want Bitcoin to be more usable as a unit of account for me.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the 4-year cycles that 1 year, and it's just horrific, right? And like the way I look at it, I'm like, people thought, is it a 4-year cycle? Is it a lengthening cycle? But I'm like going, no. It's either a 4-year cycle because we're locked into the gravity of Bitcoin's miners and the halvening cycle, and then there's the macro cycle, which these are gravitational pulls, and it's gonna we're gonna go 4 years, or we're gonna get pulled into the macro economics, which is roughly 10 years, and we're gonna go binary to being correlated to any other world asset. It'll be like that. And so if we break this, and let's say it doesn't start caving in 2022 and it just falls back into another 4-year thing, but the demand and supply is sufficient for that escape velocity, and all of these complications and interactions of the new Bitcoin ecosystem. And, really it was very simple before. It was just miners halve the amount of dumping onto the market, and that's the impulse. Now we've got volatility impacts, how much volume is traded. Those kind of impacts impact how much is selling on the market, because those infrastructure guys dump, right? because they dump their collected Bitcoin revenues and fees into the market. ETFs are the same. They collect their thing, they dump their fees, they dump it on the market. So there's this very complex interaction now. And so one thing that I can see is highly probable is that a little bit like tell me, is Dan Howard's super cycle, is he saying we skip a cycle, or is he saying this is the full-on thing and we no longer?
He's saying, well, he doesn't know. It's a theory, a bit like Plan B's S2F model is a model, and S2F is a model until it breaks, right? So the model will either continue through and we will see 150, 200,000K Bitcoin, and then we'll drop whatever, and the model will continue, or it breaks. Dan's is similar. It's a theory. He has a theory that we might go into a super cycle, and I'm trying to remember it because I covered it in the show with him. I asked him what would cause it to be a super cycle, and I think he said it would be less. I'm trying to remember, less than a 50% drop from the top, because we've been used to 80%, 70 to 80%. Be less than 50% from the top, and then continue back up.
Okay.
So, and I think that was his theory on the super cycle. There's a lot of things pointed at a super cycle, because I think that the 4-year cycle makes sense when you look at it through the lens of retail investors, and you look at the lens through miners and the halving cycle, and you also look through like the greed and fear kind of index, right? It kind of makes sense. But I think so much stuff is plowing into Bitcoin. If you have an ETF or multiple ETFs, you have a nation adopting Bitcoin, you have massive amounts of inflation coming in and people realizing about Bitcoin. I think you can be. I think they are the things that point to the fact that you won't have that 4-year cycle. You won't have that 80% drawdown. Perhaps we say we could go up to like 150K at the end of the year, and early next year drop to 100, but then go up to 200K by the end of next year. I think the cycle will get broken by there being a much bigger market of Bitcoin buyers and sellers.
Yeah, so like when I think of cycles, I think about the x-axis, the time component, which is 4 years. And I was interested to see if these super cycles, we skip a cycle and we come back. It's an 8-year bull run, and then we come back. And but I think what's happening is that we break the 4-year, and once we break it, it's essentially like this thing that's reached escape velocity, and we're no longer pulled into the 4-year mining cycle. And you can see it already. The price is doing this drunken wander of price discovery, and it's not these nice parabolics we saw before. And I think we just wander. We just keep wandering up and down as Bitcoin adopts and gets to saturation. Without these, like 50% was the last pullback, which we just had. And that was the last one. That's a good kind of barometer of what we can expect in the future, and it'll get less and less and less. And then we have these correlations to macroeconomics. So that's it. Like, that's the big revelation, is that's the first solid bit of on-chain, data-driven suggestion that we've reached escape velocity. That's getting me pretty excited, and I'm like going,
yeah.
Whoa. I looked at the options market, and I was seeing what these call options were, making a bet out into 2022 of what Bitcoin price will be, and I'm like going, well, seems pretty undervalued based on these new models. And I'm like going, yeah, the market's not pricing this in yet. I don't think they are. So
I don't think so.
Yeah. So I think it's a very interesting opportunity, because everyone's thinking one thing, and the latest stuff we can see in the data between the investors is that it's not going to repeat, and this cycle is not a 2013 double pump and a blow off top. This is completely different. This is the new 2020 onward cycle, which we've never seen before. And I mean, even at the start of this year, I see the structure is completely different from 2013. Like, you can look at price and you go, oh yeah, it's going to be a 2013. But if you look on chain, it's like a completely different structure. Never seen it before. So yeah, and even like at the start of the year, they were going, what do you think is going to happen at the top, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like going, I'll tell you when we get there. With like third, fourth quarter, I'll have more information. And now it's starting to come in. And it's like really interesting, It's like, wow, this is very promising. We're going to have another run. And like forget December sell-off, which has happened every other top. So it's good news.
Well, like I say, I'm bullish as fuck, mate. I'm more bullish now than I think I have been at any point during this bull market. I've been accumulating Bitcoin again, and I don't like buying Bitcoin mid bull market. I don't, just in case I'm wrong. But I am accumulating again, and yeah, I'm bullish. I'm getting into the mining, and I hold more Bitcoin now than at any other point during this bull market, and and I did sell off a little bit for my little venture into buying a few cars earlier this year, but yeah, no, I'm really bullish. So we'll see how it plays out, man. Cool. I wonder what to title this show. I could call it bullish as fuck, and I'm telling you, we'll get 150,000 downloads. Or I could do like a rant or two with the banking infrastructure, and I'll get 50,000. The banking rant, and it'll be like 50,000. I might trick people. Fuck. All right, man. Well, listen, always good to talk to you, Willy. Love this. When am I going to see you in person?
Oh, I think neither at this stage, eh? The world's not opening up.
Oh, man. Are you not thinking of getting out?
Well, I've got a newborn baby. Traveling's not easy like that. And like, if I'm going to come home, it's a 3-week quarantine. Try doing that from a hotel room with a newborn if you're going to take the newborn, or not seeing your newborn for a month or more. It's not going to happen.
No. Well, at some point, man, we'll make it work at some point. Look, good to talk to you. Appreciate you giving me a little bit of a pep talk, and yeah,
didn't mean it.
I'll see you in a month, man.
Yeah. All right. I'll catch you next month. I hope. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. No. We will continue. There's. I need to update my Substack as well to pay. I don't want to give you my Bitcoin. I like the incentive though of the. It's only for new people, right? You're not going to double my rate.
No. Everyone's just grandfathered in the old stuff. What we will do is we'll stop the annual subscriptions. Just because I want the ability to pivot the letter and change formats and stuff. And if you're committed for a year, then it makes it pretty difficult.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. All right, man. Well, listen, I will see you in a month. Bullish as fuck. And yeah, we'll see where we are. Hopefully, I've got a feeling, do you know what? I've got a feeling by the time we speak next, we might have had a new all-time high.
I'm not out of the question. Definitely, yeah, it's not out of the question. Yep. You got good instinct, right. I think, for the most part. Yep.
That's because I read your letter that I pay for that everyone else should subscribe to. Right. Anyway, I've got to go to Dallas. Good to see you, man.
Enjoy. Catch you later.